Hello there, I'm Marc Fennell and welcome to India Now. Tonight on the program, India's push to fast-track home innovation and the Indian Premier League. How breaking with tradition has created a cricket superpower.
Oh, unbelievable!
And joining me on the panel this week is Professor Veena Sahajwala, inventor, engineer extraordinaire and this year's New South Wales Australian of the Year. Look at you, you massive underachiever. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Marc.
We also have Dipin Ragani, who is an expert in trade and investment. You've been travelling between Australia and India multiple times, and you've flown in just for us, right?
Absolutely, yes. I'm going back later this week.
Well, we are grateful to have you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Let us start by checking in with what's going on in India now. Avani Dias is the ABC's South Asia correspondent and she joins us now from Delhi. Avani, from Australia to Russia, Germany, Afghanistan. Indian leader Narendra Modi, he's balancing a lot of diplomatic relationships at the moment.
That's right, Marc. India is playing the field when it comes to foreign policy. Right now, Narendra Modi is in Germany for the G7 meeting. India's not even a part of the G7, but it's been given this special invite to attend this meeting of countries, including the US. But it's really interesting because this meeting at the G7 is happening on the backdrop of more Russian attacks on Ukraine, and there's a lot of pressure to condemn Russia. Now, India has been facing those calls all year, effectively, since the invasion started. But it's been really successful in not saying anything and staying completely neutral when it comes to Russia, because it is an important trading partner for India, especially when it comes to military ties. So India needs Russia a lot. But then on the flip side, its quad partners, countries like Australia, the US and Japan, have been pressuring it to actually make a comment when it comes to the Ukraine invasion. However, Narendra Modi is, of course, building those relationships and continuing those relationships. Just a couple of days ago, he went to the BRICS summit, which is a meeting between Brazil, Russia, India, China and South Africa. And at that meeting, Russia was condemning Western sanctions.
Dipin, it's a fair point. I mean, India is maintaining a lot of diplomatic relationships with a lot of people, but there are going to be some fault lines. They can't be friends with everybody all the time, right?
Absolutely. Look, first and foremost, let me say, new India is marching at the beat of its own drums. And, you know, there are a lot of things I can say, but I echo Dr. Jaishankar, who's the Foreign Minister for India, his opinions on this. And let me just tell you what he said. He said that the country's foreign policy was not based on accepting a construct that it has to side with the power axis. India is on the fifth largest population in the world and around the fifth largest economy in the world, right? So it feels that it's entitled to its own views and ways of its own interests, right? So that's, I think I echo that opinion because it's growing, it's becoming globally, it's becoming a leader as opposed to a follower. And when you see Modi traveling around the world, and that is to connect not just with other countries, but also to the Indian diaspora. And you look at Munich yesterday, there was a massive event for the diaspora on behalf of, you know, Modi being in the country.
Yeah, there's not picking a camp and then there's not commenting on Ukraine. There's slightly, you know, there's a bit of space in between those two things as well, right?
Yeah, look, the foreign minister has definitely made some comments on Ukraine and Russia and so on. And there are some internal dialogues between India and Russia in regards to this. And India is not going to take sides. But you've got to understand that Europe, for example, is screaming loud about this. But Europe is the largest acquirer of gas and natural resources from Russia. So why doesn't it buy from Iran? Why doesn't it buy from Venezuela? Why are we picking on India? It's small. It's a very, very small, minute portion of India's foreign, imports.
I mean, can India be political friends with everybody?
Look, I think, India is playing such an important role on the global scene. And I really feel particularly proud of all those young Indians who are, contributing, whether it's about, the technological sort of skills that they bring in so much to the world. And you look at, incredible Indians who've been doing so much across the world. So I think to me, to be able to have those kind of multilateral relationships and contributing in a positive way, whether it is to economies, to our social sort of fabric, and of course, ultimately to all those environmental outcomes that the world world is looking for. So I think India has to play an important role in making a contribution.
I mean, we've also seen India play a pretty crucial role in a number of crises around the region. Avani, of course, there's been the economic turmoil in Sri Lanka that you've been covering. And now, very recently, the deadly earthquakes in Afghanistan, Avani.
Yeah, and Marc, just quickly to pick up on the points from the panel, the thing is that India is in such high demand at the moment. A lot of these countries, including the US and Australia, don't want to put too much pressure and jeopardise their relationships with India because they know they need this country, especially when it comes to dealing with Chinese influence in the region. But as you say, India has really been stepping up in the broader South Asia area, as you say, offering aid to Sri Lanka, and now stepping in after that awful earthquake that hit last week, killing at least 1,000 Afghan people in the eastern part of the country. A lot of countries, including Australia, were really reluctant to come forward and send money. They were worried that it would fall into the hands of the militant Taliban. But India has said, we're going to step in, we're going to send aid because people on the ground need it most. Now, the Taliban has come forward and said this is a positive step, this could build relations between these two countries. But India has said this is purely humanitarian in the region.
All right, Avani, thank you so much. India is a country in a hurry, and not just because of all those political relationships. Prime Minister Modi wants to fast-track growth, particularly in industries like manufacturing, technology and pharmaceuticals. Now, that has made India one of the most fertile grounds in the world for start-up companies, including more than 100 so-called unicorn companies. Now, these are privately held start-ups worth more than $1 billion, and you are about to meet a guy who runs one. Rahul Garg. Now, his start-up helps other businesses find industrial suppliers.
So I'm the founder and CEO for Moglex. I started the company in 2015, and I started with a simple goal that we want to build world's largest B2B commerce company. And 7 years in, I think we are one of the fastest and largest B2B commerce company in India. You can imagine an automotive company, pharma, chemical, steel, mining, you name a sector in manufacturing, Moglex is working with them. When they need any of these products, at a click of a button, they can order from Moglex, get it delivered to any of their manufacturing plants, length and breadth of India, and get it delivered in a timely manner. I would say that India's role in terms of global supply chain, manufacturing, will be very, very significant, and this is happening today. I mean, I think we are one of the largest producers of steel, we are one of the largest producers of cement. We will become a significant powerhouse for automotive, we will become a significant powerhouse for pharmaceuticals. India, to transform itself, has been selecting digital as the path.
We have built the world's most efficient payment infrastructure, the UPI.
Thinking about schemes like UPI, where they have brought the entire payment infrastructure onto a common national payments infrastructure, I think these are phenomenal sort of initiatives which have meant that India is going to transform itself using a digital first approach. And what has happened therefore for the startups is that many of the challenges which were plaguing the country can suddenly be solved using technology and at scale. I think we are producing more than 10,000 plus startups every year. You have a market which has most of the problems being unsolved. You have access to capital. The venture capital in India, if you look at it, has almost been doubling, tripling over the last several years.
Come, make in India.
See, the government's role is about creating the enabling infrastructure. So first is about ease of doing business. I mean, like the country today continues to climb multiple ladders in terms of the ranking of ease of doing business. Second thing is about creating pure infrastructure. I remember back in 2015, I think, when we were looking at simple things like how long does it take a truck from Delhi to Bombay to travel, and therefore it affects the speed of supply chain in the country. That speed has doubled in the last 7 years, and we think it will actually double in the next 5 years. But I think this is just the beginning, because these unicorns that are getting created, including ours, are not just having the ambition of building it in India, but using many of the technology, the complexity of problem that we are solving to build for the world.
Dipen, there are tech companies all around the world, but are there unique things about unicorns like that in India that the rest of the world can learn from?
Look, absolutely. I think what's happened with India and where it's heading towards with regards to technology, it's always had, tremendous talent. As Veena suggested, the intelligence that is coming out. There's 2 million skilled English-speaking students that are going into the workforce every year. These are engineers. These are, incredibly strong in regards to what the aspirational, right? So, as part of India's growth story, the government implemented a wider set of nation-building initiatives, and Startup India being one of them, which allows the ecosystem to develop funding, infrastructure, and if you look at it today, India has over 850 million internet users. By 2024, 1 billion mobile phones will be in the marketplace. And this is all the mobile technology that's taking shape in India at the moment. So mass production, access is very important. So India can build in India for the world.
Veena, the success, or I guess the sheer number of startups like that, what does it tell you about India's economy at the moment?
Yeah, look, I think it's actually reflecting, the vibe in the country. We talk about Make in India, but when you make stuff in India, it also means that you're lifting the opportunities for everyone, right? You can imagine it's not just the large sort of metro places, but all of those other smaller towns that can be connected, because it lifts the economy where you're connecting, people who are looking for jobs and people who are actually manufacturing all of these products. But I think, to me, most importantly, it's also creating that ecosystem whereby, communities, whether they're in rural India, after all, about 70% of Indians live in rural regions. So, start to uplift that whole ability to pull that market along where everyone can benefit. I think, to me, that's exciting, that the way is seeing that change happen. And of course, Indians are very savvy consumers, right? So I think everyone's going to be looking for a bargain, and who doesn't? So, I just remember going through the markets, with my mum, and growing up, it was like one of these things where I think if anything, I was more fascinated by just watching her doing the bargaining, and I think, to me, this is the beauty of, all those important bazaars, not just in places like Mumbai, but imagine all these incredibly amazing towns that are going to be lifted up, and people get a chance to be, those entrepreneurs. You dream of doing that. It's that ultimate empowerment.
Yeah, it's interesting. There's a lot of understandable focus on the unicorns, these huge companies, but there is a knock-on effect. It's not just about these gazillion-dollar companies.
Exactly. And you're absolutely right, Mark. That whole knock-on effect is exactly where I feel thrilled to hear these stories, and the fact that you might have, these tiny businesses that can literally start off at your home can empower particularly young people, and even a lot of people who are that sort of mid-career stages are going, wait a minute, I've got all these incredible skills. I can make things. You know what? I want to be part of the supply chain. To me, I can just picture what this incredible Make in India campaign is going to do for all those communities that live in small towns and rural India. So super exciting.
There has been some commentary that the Make in India campaign has had mixed results in some ways. Why? What are the aspects of it that could have done better? I
think the first term, from 2014, 2015, so on, was to settle these new initiatives, Startup India, Make in India, Skill India, and all of these initiatives were nation building. Now, it was a slow start, it was a slow uptake, but today, when you look at where India is, India has now surpassed its ambitions on exports. It's $400 billion. Now they want to double that.
In all of this focus on growth, this massive amount of growth we're seeing, is it actually sustainable? Are they putting enough attention on sustainability?
Look, I'm really glad you asked that question, Mark, because I think, to me, this is such an important issue that I think India will have to deal with. Because, I mean, we do know that, you know, Modi's talked about Swachh Bharat, that is a Clean India campaign. And yep, we understand that that's important. I was seeing people kind of really switching on to that notion. But I think sustainability is more than just that, right? I mean, India, you know, again, growing up in India, the fact that you could use and reuse products and get, you know, repairs done and you didn't throw away anything was just how you were brought up, because of course that was an important way to save money for so many families. You know, all the typical hand-me-downs that you do in families, which is pretty awesome, because you know you could access your cool cousin's kind of clothes and stuff, right? But I think to me,
hard to scale up. You're a company, but yes.
Yeah, exactly. But I guess the point, therefore, this is that next question around sustainability. You know, it's got to be more than just kind of the things that happen at the smaller level, right? So when we look at the waste that is obviously going to build up in India, we have to start to talk about waste recycling for some of the more complex products, right? So when we talk about sustainability, whether it's your waste tires or plastics or electronic waste, I mean, in all of these cases, to be sustainable, you've got to actually, again, bring those materials into your production capacity so they get recycled and remanufactured. So it's also starting to think sustainability from all of those pillars of social, you know, environmental and economic benefits. And if you can kind of start to see it in that context, I think to me it's going to be that ultimate empowerment, right? Communities really getting excited about sustainability, and that there are so many multiple pathways to get there. But I think to me, you know, everyone coming along that journey and to scale it up in every town, every community is going to be a pretty cool thing to watch. And getting young people excited about all those environmental benefits, I think is going to be a pretty great way for everyone in India to see sustainability as the way of life.
Well, there is no resource more important than people, right? And of course, as borders have opened up around the world, is there a risk of India losing all this talent going overseas?
Not necessarily. In fact, what's happening, there's a reverse of this brain drain that we talked about, you know, a decade ago, where we talked about, you know, Startup India, you know, Make in India, Skill India. So a lot of the NRIs that have gone overseas to start their business or to educate in other parts of the world have now coming back.
Non-resident Indians? It's for people playing along at home?
Yes, NRIs, non-resident Indians. So they're all coming back to India. You know, they see the opportunity there, you know. I mean, why do we educate ourselves to get a better income, to have a better life, right? And so if you've already created that, and then your home country where you've left is now creating an ecosystem for you to come back and earn a better living and a better life, and also add value to the, you know, the world's economy from there, why not?
Well, on that point, what do the CEO of Google, Microsoft and Twitter all have in common? Well, they all studied at Indian Institutes of Technology. Now, these are known for being harder to get into than Harvard. They're famous for engineering degrees. These universities, though, often struggle with a common problem in science and technology education.
So I'm here right now at the Geotechnical Engineering Lab, where I have to finish off one final experiment for my course project. Well, it's not really.
I go to the Indian Institute of Technology, Madras, and I study civil engineering.
My work revolves around is using soil with geopolymers and using that mixture for 3D printing.
I wanted to do something that kind of helped the environment that falls under civil, and I also didn't want to interact with people. So I guess buildings are easier to interact with.
So I'm here in my room right now, and I'll give you guys a quick room tour. Anyway, I get a view of the cycle park from here.
It's like the top institution for engineering. It's like a really prestigious college.
We woke up late and we missed breakfast.
Yep.
Breakfast at the mess. Care to introduce yourself?
I'm Ankit and I hang out with her a lot.
Why?
No idea.
There are a couple large institutions that they have centers all over the country. They have very rigorous programs, and a lot of the people who come here are mostly from those companies, institutions. I don't really know what to call them. I have quite a few classmates who have been in these classes since they were in like 6th grade, so that's like 11.
As of today's work, we have done this. We have done these two patches. The one on the right is the control mix, and the one on the left is the PCB mix.
So my class has about 110 people. of which 19 of us are girls.
It's been going good. I've done a lot of lab work today. I'm happy.
Up until a couple years ago, there was like an abysmal percentage of girls that were taken into these programs.
Okay, so I've been in the lab for about 3 hours.
Especially since the girl seats were added, there's also this added misconception of, oh, you don't deserve your seat, you only got here because you're a girl.
And we're working together on a project.
I think with more girls coming in with the incoming batches, I think the batches after mine are a little bit more respectful, but still got a long way to go.
Everyone's just kind of wrapping up because this is when the lab closes.
I'm very glad that I am here because this is what I'm interested in. I'm hoping that I get to go to a PhD and eventually become a professor like my mum.
Fina, you went to an IIT, didn't you?
Oh, gosh, Marc, how did you know?
Does it take you back?
Yeah, absolutely. Particularly when I was having a look at those dorm rooms and looking at those little boxes. I'm going, oh, nightmare. Oh, my God. Yeah, totally.
Has much changed?
Oh, look, when I look at those rooms, no. But look, I mean, you know, it's lovely to, you know, face up to the facts. I mean, as the girl mentioned, you know, there weren't that many women in IITs up until not that long ago. And I was obviously back in the day when there weren't that many girls. Not only that, there was one girls' hostel, which was like out there in the middle of nowhere. It was almost like the signal to girls was, you just go live out there in the corner. We don't want to see you that often. But no, I'm just kidding. Look, I mean, the realities were that, of course, you know, if there are going to be very few girls who even try to get in, and they're not being encouraged to get in, how are you going to expect them to come through the system, right? So I guess for me, you know, being kind of one of those few girls in IIT at the time was almost the joy of getting in was massive. Yeah. And then the disappointment of kind of turning up to these places and kind of just feeling that sense of isolation, you know, and at many points it kind of can break you. So I think to me, there is a lot more work to be done, right? And I'm not saying improvements haven't happened over time and all of that, but I think we need to now not take, you know, decades to get there. I think we need to accelerate that quickly as we've been talking about. I mean, we're going to be looking at India on this growth trajectory. I think we need to be able to say, you know, we need to encourage and find those incredible young women to really, you know, first and foremost, yeah, it's competitive, so apply for it. But you've got to be studying those subjects in high school. So I think it's that broader, I guess, you know, ecosystem that we need to support more women and girls to think about STEM, so that's science, technology, engineering, and maths-based careers, but to show that, you know, it's exciting. It's not just where you go to IIT and then you work as an engineer, but to inspire young women to say, you know what, there are lots and lots of things you could be doing.
You could end up on India Now in Australia.
Oh, well, there you go.
What else could you possibly want to aspire?
Exactly, Marc, exactly right. But no, look, I mean, I think to me, you know, I am, of course, very appreciative that the quality of education that you get in an IIT is absolutely world-class, and absolutely credit to the system and the wonderful professors who are passionate about their science and engineering. And I think, to me, that's really why you go and you study at these places, because you love the subject, you're excited about it, and that's really what IITs offer. So I think, to me, on the positive side, we've got to celebrate all the brilliant people that IITs have produced over decades.
Don't worry, Dippin, we're going to get into your childhood in a second. We're going to talk about cricket next. So last week, the broadcast rights to the Indian Premier League sold for a record, get this, $500 million. That's around 3 times the value of previous contracts. And the cricket tournament is now one of the world's most valuable sporting leagues.
To the purists, it's just not cricket. But whether they like it or not, the Indian Premier League is here to stay. It took the world by storm when it was launched in 2008 and changed the game forever.
Fans realized that they were watching something very, very special. Stadiums were packed. It was like a carnival.
It's even become the fourth most profitable sporting league on the planet.
The broadcast and digital rights are the highest in the world.
Some cricketers used to have to take second jobs just to earn a living. Now, many players are earning more per match than English Premier League football stars.
Why would a player want to play Test cricket? Why would they want to slog for 5 days under the sun in a different format?
And the need to score more runs more quickly has changed the way players in all formats approach batting.
The batsmen are aggressive. The old days of talking about patience is all gone.
And the revenue has made India's governing cricket body the most powerful in the world.
The BCCI now controls 60 to 70% of the finances of the game the world over. It dominates Australia and England.
So while the Test purists might turn their noses up at it, it seems like nothing will stop the IPL.
Now, my records here show, Dipin, that you played cricket for the Middlesex County Juniors as a child, who I know watch, shout-outs. Why is it that that IPL has blown up in the way that it has? What is it about it as a game that you think?
Well, it's a shorter version of the game. It's exciting. It's 3 hours as opposed to 5 days or 1 day. It's suited for children. It's suited for women, right? And so the game has grown to a larger audience, appealing to a larger audience. And it's taken a while for it to get there. I mean, IPL was started some time ago. And now if you look at it, the IPL obviously is the biggest 2020 tournament in the world, but every country has their own 2020 tournament. And in fact, later this year, Australia itself is hosting the men's 2020 championships in October and November. And so where I see it taking off is not the purist, and I can be a purist, but the 5-day match where you sit there and it's like a game of chess and you analyse each player's strengths and weaknesses and your fielding position.
Oh, you love it. You can see in his face. He loves it.
Oh, my God.
Did you see his face?
I know.
Oh.
So the 2020 is a swashbuckle, right? It's an exciting game. It's, you know, hitting 60s and 4s and you got, you know, dancers everywhere and colour and pizzazz, and it's amazing. And it's exciting. It's entertaining.
I love that the business part of you is like, I get why it works, but deep down you like the 5-day thing, don't you?
I do. I love it. Yeah.
If IPL had been around when you were a kid, would you have gotten into cricket as much?
You know, Mark, okay, now I'm going to reveal all those secrets. Like, I'm not a huge fan. Like, me neither. Okay, we won't tell him because it's like, oh, I know, horrible, isn't it? But look, I mean, this is exactly why I was sort of thinking, oh my God, 5 days, no, please, 3 hours, no. I mean, like seriously, I as much as I love the whole concept and the movement and the vibes and the buzz and all of that, I mean, I love that excitement, but I wonder whether that's really what cricketing nations are really all about, is in a way that uniting force where you get people like us to get excited about the fact that, yeah, stuff's happening on the playground, but you know what? There is something more about it. And I think to me, that's that vibe that you get, you know, when it comes to Sydney or when it's in Mumbai, because I just remember, again, you know, growing up in Mumbai, you can't help just get sucked into the fever, right? And I guess to me, this is what I love about it.
All right. Thank you so much, Veena and Indepth, for being on the show this week. Join me next week. We'll be talking about how an unsuspecting city became home to the world's first fully solar-powered airport. Before we leave you this week, after creating TV history by becoming the youngest ever artist to go on The Voice, the now 13-year-old Janaki Easwar has released her third single, and here is a look at that. Good night.
And then again, my last shot.
Got me feeling bittersweet. Can't hold back, should I repeat? The way that you smile makes me sway. You got me feeling